the Start Your Own Business podcast. Hear inspiring startup stories and get reliable expert advice on how to start your business and get off to the best possible start. Brought to you by Startup Donut, helping small businesses succeed.
Hello, I'm Chloe Thomas, your host, and in this episode, I'm chatting to Mahatme, ex-bartender who started Lixir Drinks in 2017 with Jordan Palmer and launched the brand in 2018. They spotted a gap in the market for tonics and mixers that combined big flavours with less sugar, fewer calories and nothing artificial. Matt and Jordan are proud disruptors who wanted to create a brand with an edge and a contemporary feel with products that looked as good as they tasted. We're covering a lot of ground in this episode, including how they came up with the idea and the pre-launch process they went through, prepping at the start for future success, their branding and how they've built that, distribution channels in drinks, and some excellent tips that you're going to find useful whether you are building a drinks business or any other business. Matt's hugely insightful, so I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. Before we meet him, though, do find out about the show sponsors, Dell Technologies, and how their technology solutions could help your business to become more productive, efficient, secure, and successful.
This series of the Start Your Own Business podcast is brought to you by Startup Donut in association with Dell Technologies.
Did you know you can get even more out of Startup Donut with new exclusive benefits from Dell Technologies? Dell for Startups provides key solutions to help set up your startup for success, including exclusive member pricing and a dedicated technology advisor who will get to know the needs and goals of your business. Advisors will deliver customized, scalable solutions for rapid tech enablement with top business class PCs and accessories. Join now for valuable resources that will help your business get growing. Visit dell.com/UK startups to join today. It's time to meet our startup expert, Mahatme. Hello, Matt.
Hi, Chloe. How's it going?
It's good. It is great to have you here. And thank you for sparing the time in your super busy startup to be talking to us today. So before you started your business, you were doing something kind of quite different in that you did a biology degree, didn't you? And then ended up working in the hospitality sector. So how, and during that process, you met your co-founder. So how did you guys kind of meet and how did you decide it was going to be a good time to build a business?
Yeah, so coincidentally, Jordan and I both ended up going to Newcastle University, which is where we rekindled our friendship. So actually, we've known each other since I think 1997, since we were sort of first year of reception at school, and we were friends at school but lost contact. And then first day of university, maybe it was fate, but I sort of bumped into Jordan's dad, he was moving him to the same halls as me, and we've become sort of really close friends throughout that period. And we were actually living together up in Newcastle, sort of post university, and that's when we had the idea, obviously, of setting up the business. But yeah, we've been friends for a while pre that.
Has that, your length of friendship, has that made running the business together easier, or has it thrown up some things you thought would work differently to how they have?
I think it has made it easier, but I wouldn't say necessarily it's the length of the friendship. It's more of the type of friendship and our personality type. So we're quite both very transparent and honest people. And I'd say that we've both been fortunate enough to kind of be raised with sort of similar values, and it then makes your decision making a lot easier when those sort of shared core values are the same. So, whilst there's things that we disagree on, it's quite easy to either come to a compromise or go, actually, I've got trust in the other person, sort of one team, one dream. Actually, you know what, I know that you're making that with the best intention. So let's get behind it if we do disagree.
Excellent. And how did you come up with the decision that you were going to go into business?
It was for Lixir, actually. It was not actually the first idea that we'd had. So I'd kind of, it pains me to say it, a bit of a cliche, but I was the kid at school that sold sweets. I'd go and unplug the vending machine so that people had to come and buy off me, all those kind of stuff. And then I was doing a few little entrepreneurial bits at university, and I think at university as well, Jordan had started doing some things. So we both kind of had that urge to start a business. And actually in our flat, we'd thought of loads of different ideas. But actually Lixir was the first one that was organic. It wasn't kind of us sat there really stressing on how do we become self-employed? How do we do our own thing? And having both, well, at the time, both working in the drinks industry, we kind of had the eureka moment, I guess, as people call it. We had one of those moments, and it was post night out, old habits die hard, and sort of having only recently graduated, we were still sort of going out a lot of the weekends, probably drinking a little bit more than we should. But we were the host, we were the kind of the party house, and it was peak of the end of the kind of traditional gin boom, and flavoured gin had really started to pop off. And it was after a night out, we were staring at all these flavoured gins on our sort of kitchen table, and we said, it doesn't really make sense to have a bottle of flavoured gin where you spend £35 on a rhubarb gin, and you can only have a rhubarb G&T over and over again, and the gin's the really expensive part. And we said, well, actually, if you flavour the mixer and make the mix more flavourful, you could buy a bottle of standard gin, like a Gordon's or a supermarket own brand or Beefeater, and actually you could go from having a normal G&T to a rhubarb and ginger G&T to an elderflower G&T. When we said that out loud, we were like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. And certainly for like a cash perspective as well, for a young consumer, you're ladled with debt, or whether you've been to college or university, you're trying to save for a house, get your first car, and it's kind of actually the most expensive part is your spirit. So that was our eureka moment. It was sort of actually sharing occasions better, and it's more cost effective.
And you can satisfy multiple people with one bottle of gin rather than having to have the grapefruit and the raspberry and the blah, 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 blah to keep everyone happy, which takes the overall cost of the party down a great deal. So you had that eureka moment. What, you could see the benefit for you. What made you realise that this had the potential to be a good business? Yeah,
so fortunately, we were both working in the drinks industry at the time. So we were sort of, I guess, compared to the general public, we had a bit more of that sort of forward-leaning insight. We were seeing developments in other categories within the industry, which was really cool to see. Within sort of spirits and beer, there was loads of kind of craft and niche players coming into the market to occupy their own sort of smaller niche within the space. So we'd seen that happen across category, and no one was doing it in mixers. So for us, it was like, okay, well, there's a start there because no one seems to be doing it, and it's happening across other categories. And then some of it really is just kind of your gut intuition. Was like, we don't feel like there's a brand in the space that appeals to us. Why not? There is in beer, there is in wine, there is in spirits, but why not for mixers? So I guess, mixture of gut and I guess industry insight.
Excellent. As you mentioned, it is a disruptor product, and you'd seen that was working in similar spaces. Was being a disruptor a key part of the plan from day one, or is it something which you've kind of realised in retrospective you were being disruptive?
It's definitely been something that's part of the plan since day one. I think some of that is intentional around kind of, where we see our marketing and our marketing position. And two, some of it's just inevitable. When you start off, you're starting from a smaller space, so you kind of have to be different to be noticed. Some of it's planned, and I guess some of it is forced. And I think the brands that do well and are successful are the ones that do really disrupt and have a point of difference, because ultimately mixers have existed for a while. We've not created a new technology product that has never existed before. We're a drinks brand, but it's how we stand out that means that we have to be a disruptor.
And thinking about kind of the launch process after you decided you were going to go for it, as we said in the intro, you started in 2017, but you didn't launch until 2018 because with your type of product, there's a bit of product development that has to happen. So how long did that take, and how did you approach it?
Yeah, it was quite a long time in the making. I think, sort of two young, 22, 23-year-olds. I think we thought within a couple of months of having the idea that we'd have a product and we'd be selling pallets of it. And, I laugh looking at our old business plans on sort of the volume assumptions that we'd made. But it actually took us 18 months to kind of go from that first eureka moment in our flat to kind of having an actual physically produced product. And actually, during that development process, I think one of the real key learnings that we had is, and has paid dividends sort of subsequently, is to be really thorough. That, we were really young and had so much enthusiasm, but there is, a huge value in being patient. So things like our brand name, we trademarked. We had the vision that we wanted to be an international brand longer term. So we trademarked Lixir within Europe and the UK. And, we had to wait 3 months for that. And that was before we could do any design work, anything on the name. And there are things that people often don't realise. They create a brand in their head and then they realise, actually, I can't take it outside of the UK. Okay, well, what do I do? So some of that planning was hard. You had to sit on your hands. You're eager to sort of do more. But, longer term, it's made us more investable. It's allowed us to export confidently into Europe. So, the planning took sort of from concept to launch about 18 months, and then also finding the right suppliers. It's kind of almost premeditating some of the challenges you might have in the future. And we went with a bottler that was more expensive and much larger in a order quantities. It was a huge risk for us to take, but it meant that longer term actually we could scale with them if the business went to where we wanted to. Whereas if we'd gone with a small supplier, a couple of years into our journey, we'd have had to move, and moving manufacturer is a really big task. So it took 18 months, but I think some really good learnings on having a bit of patience.
And a lot of time saved in the future as well, based on, not making a short-term decision, but making a long-term decision. You mentioned it's made you more investable, some of the things you've done from day one. How did you fund it all for those first 18 months and for the launch? Did you borrow money from family and friends? Did you max out credit cards? Did you find investors? Did you do a crowdfunder? What was your way of funding the business in those early stages?
So kind of through the development phase, Jordan and I self-funded. So it was very much life savings, bit of inheritance, all into, okay, right, we cleared ourselves out to kind of living to paycheck, and everything went into it, which, to be honest, was probably some youthful naivety and not really. I think our parents, if they'd known it initially, they do now what we put, how much we put into it, they'd have been like, what are you doing that for? But we kind of put, our life savings together into the business. And then we also did a crowdfunder just before we launched. So we did a rewards-based crowdfunder, which was essentially people could pledge for packs of tonic of varying sizes. Some had spirit partners in. And if we successfully hit our crowdfunding target, once we produced our first ever batch, they would be the first customers to receive product in lieu of sort of supporting us up front. So it's kind of a double-edged approach. And then there's only about 2.5 months into launching and actually having product. We basically sold out. And that was at that point, we're like, okay, I think we're onto something here, where we approached, a couple of people on our network that we knew were keen to invest into brands, and had said, look, if this dream becomes a reality, about a year and a half before, come to us, if you are looking for funding. And then, subsequently took on our first round of what we call, I guess, seed investment.
So going back to that crowdfunder quickly, I've heard a lot of brands say that the crowdfunder was great for the money and the orders, but it was even better for the community and the customer list it built up from day one. Has that been something you found, or have you found that brought you good customers and everything as well as the sales, or was it purely the income side of it that was the goal for you?
To be honest, there's sort of two reasons we did it. The income was obviously great. Secondly, for us, we didn't want to kind of just create a product and go to market and say, well, we've created this product, here it is. It was like, okay, how can we build a story before having product? And we'd waited so long. It was actually, if we can do a build up where we don't have the product yet, one, it's great market validation, but two, it allows us to, as you sort of mentioned, to sort of build a community pre even having a physical product. And it wasn't a huge community, but I think, we had 269 backers, and being able to take that to our first customer and say, look, we've only got brand designs, we've got a concept here, no one's even tried the liquid, but they're really backing us and our story. What's not to love about that, I guess, as sort of two guys trying to sort of take on some of the bigger players, and that helped us get our first ever listing, which was great. And then those backers have become sort of longer term advocates. I'd say slightly less so in our model because it was rewards based rather than an traditional equity based crowdfund. So I think you do find with equity based crowdfunders, obviously the customer has more of a longer term buy into what you're doing.
I love the way you use the proof of the people are buying in to get you listings. Now, listings, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, but listings, that's when you get your product into a retail store or a retail chain. So essentially the wholesale selling model. So soon after you started, you were doing wholesale into, I guess, retails and bars?
Yeah, so how the model works is, I guess it's called on and off trade. So the on trade is anywhere where you can consume alcohol on premise. Off trade is where you have to take that and consume at home. So you traditionally is your convenience stores, your big retailers, etc. our kind of first avenue of sales was through the on-trade, but to kind of open up pubs and bars, you obviously need to be selling into a wholesaler that supplies them. So that was our first major stumbling block, is getting into those wholesalers to be able to service bars, because service them individually, delivering to 50 outlets yourself rather than sending a pallet to one wholesaler is, a mammoth task. And then you've got to chase for 50 invoices rather than one. So we went straight down that wholesale route, initially. But actually, interesting, our first customer was Fenwick, the department stores. It's their flagship store in Newcastle. And we were like, okay, that's a great place to display your products. Having launched in the Northeast, they were really supportive of us. But we actually hand delivered that first order. I remember sort of driving down with Jordan, and we sort of getting to this drop off point, and it was just us taking it out of the back of a car, which sort of raised a few eyebrows. But yeah, the model was initially go through sort of wholesalers and then into bars.
And did you do the D2C, so the selling direct to consumers via your website from day one, or is that something which developed later?
It developed later. Actually, it developed out of the pandemic when, we lost 90% of our business overnight when pubs and bars closed. So, pivoted really quickly to that D2C model. We did have some D2C presence, but it wasn't something we were investing a lot of time into. I think for anyone setting up a business, you're looking at and understanding your value chain is really, really important, because in your head you're like, oh great, we go direct to consumer, we'll cut these guys out. But actually sending one case to consumer is more expensive for us. We make less money on it than we would do necessarily selling, let's say, a full pallet into Amazon, or selling a pallet into a retailer who's got an online store and does that kind of fulfillment side themselves. Glass, liquid's also really, really heavy. Couriers don't want to touch it. When it breaks, it's expensive. So yeah, it was something that we adopted later on, and we were kind of forced into that via COVID.
And now you've been forced into it. Are you glad you've got it as an arm of the business, or does part of you kind of think, I wish we just stuck with the on-trade, off-trade side of things? We
want to be a digital first brand, so having an online presence is really important to us. So I'm really glad we do have it now. It's one of those things, actually, once you have that infrastructure set up, it's not overtly costly to run. It's Harriet, our brand manager, who sort of set up our website, etc. She's done an incredible job, and she can manage that quite comfortably on her own. And whether there's 100 orders coming in or 500, it does, it's sort of self-fulfilling. There isn't too much over investment on there, so it's a really good channel to have. And it's only ever going to become more increasingly popular, that D2C model. So yeah, really glad we have it.
And you mentioned you've got a brand manager there, and you have a very, very strong brand. And we've talked about the trademarking side of things before you could get on with doing the branding. Within the sector, within the business you've been creating, the brand has been crucially important, as you recognised on day one. So how did you go about creating it? Did you use an agency? Did you use a friend? Did you do it yourselves? And have you had to rebrand at any point?
Yeah, so the name Lixir we came up with ourselves, and that was, again, almost a bit of a eureka moment. So it's a shortened form of the word an elixir, and the definition of an elixir is a medicinal drink often consumed with alcohol. Now, the origins of kind of tonic water is that the quinine, which is the defining ingredient, which makes it, gives it that slightly bitter taste, used to be used as an anti-malarial by the British Army when they occupied India. So that kind of elixir is a nod to, well, actually, that's the historical use of quinine, is that medicinal purposes, and it's also got a great ring to it. And cutting off the E allows us to kind of use that X as a real sort of centre point of our brand. And Jordan and I, when we first set out on that, creating the brand, always said we'd love to have a brand asset, a bit like the Apple or the Nike tick, where we know we've made it as a brand when the Lixir X is on a pub quiz where it's like, which brand is this? So we kind of came up with the name ourselves, and it also ties into one of our really important sort of business goals. So, we want to be a sustainable brand. We want to give back, and we donate a percentage of our revenue to a clean water charity. So essentially, for every case we sell, we provide 100 litres of clean drinking water, which is also a nod to our name. So if you're fortunate enough to have an elixir in the UK and be able to go out and drink with your friends, you are actually providing an elixir for someone else who doesn't have that privilege. And one of the things that we learn, how you behave and your values, is an intrinsic part of your brand beyond obviously how it looks. So a lot of our brand is something that kind of is inherently Jordan and I projecting our values into a product and a business. But yeah, from a design perspective, we've done a couple of brand reiterations. We did use an agency for that. So we used one sort of smaller agency initially. And then as you kind of go on, you learn more about your business. You can't see actually this needs to evolve. And if you look at even big brands, always changing their packaging, it's about how it makes the consumer look and feel. And then, about a year and a half ago, we did a really successful rebrand, and we really wanted to own our space of being a contemporary challenger. So we used an amazing agency for that called We Launch, someone we built a personal relationship up with prior to that, going into that, which I think actually is really paid dividends, because we had that personal relationship. It felt like we could be really honest with our feedback rather than potentially upsetting someone, in a new agency that would only just, the longer the relationship is, the easier it is to go, I hate that. That doesn't feel very us. So yeah, we've used a mixture of both, but yeah, it's been a fun journey creating the brand.
You've given us lots of tips already, Matt, but thinking of someone who's about to start their own business journey right now, what 3 key tips would you give them to help them avoid some of the pitfalls and embrace some of the success a little bit faster?
I think that's a really good question. There's just so many great nuggets of advice that we've had from other people, but a bit of a cliche, but it's so true. Cash is king. It's always in your back of your mind thinking, how am I funding this? Great if I'm going to sell it, but when am I getting the money in after I've sold it? Everyone will be on payment terms. So cash is king. It's always that's your number one thing to focus on to start off, is how am I funding it? Is it sustainable? And that doesn't mean, you might not be able to self-fund it yourself. There's plenty of funding options out there, whether that's raising investment, taking a loan, but having that in mind from the start, because it creeps up on you really quickly and it can be very stressful when that sort of bank balance is looking low. And that might not be that you're not performing well. It might just be that there's loads of money in stock. So I'd say cash is king. So always look at your cash flow. Really important from day one, and get into the habit of that. I'd say 2, trust your gut. Again, a bit of the cliche, but I think your gut always serves you right. And sometimes 90% of people will be telling you the opposite. But if your gut's saying, isn't that 10%, do it. Part of starting up a business is your appetite for risk. And that's often going against the grain. So trust your gut, even if that is going against what other people say. And I think the third is go into it knowing that you're going to have to make sacrifices, but there will be challenge, that there will be challenges, but it'll be worthwhile if you put kind of your full whole, head and heart into it. There's always going to be a trade-off somewhere. For me, it was, having to sort of travel around, be away from my partner for long periods of time. But subsequently now I've carved the life out that I really love and enjoy. But, she would say that it's one of the best things I've ever done, but it doesn't come without personal sacrifice. So be aware of that before you start.
Excellent advice. Thank you very much for giving us those, Matt. Before we say goodbye, though, everyone, I'm guessing, is going, I must try Matt's Lixir. So could you please let the audience know how they can find you and your business on the web, please? Yeah,
absolutely. So for ordering, you can either go onto Amazon Prime. So the full range is available next day delivery if you just search Lixir Drinks into Amazon. lixirdrinks.co.uk if you want to order mixed variety packs off our website. And then for socials, if you just search Lixir Drinks UK into Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, you'll find us on all major social channels. Give us a follow.
Excellent. And just for total clarity, everyone, that is Lixir to find the brand, just in case you're going, I can't work out how to spell it. Matt, you've been an absolutely excellent guest, sharing so much insight with the audience. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
How well does Matt have his head screwed on? I mean, that is if the Lixir brand doesn't go huge over the next few years, I suspect something else which Matt and Jordan do will. Definitely one to watch. For me, the key points of all the things he ran through were, of course, his point on cash can make or break any business and is extra crucial in a startup. The brand side of things, they've invested in the visual brand where they've needed to, but they've also been fully aware that the brand is so much more than just that visual. It's about the values, the vision they've got, and making sure that that is held through everything, which makes the creation of the visual brand so much easier. So it was great to hear him kind of waxing lyrical about that. And then thirdly, the preparation work they did, which I think, if you're planning on building a brand that can go big, like the one they're doing, you have, or it massively pays off to spend that time at the beginning plotting and planning and making sure you've got all your ducks in a row and you're making good long-term decisions so that once things start growing faster, you are not busy quickly changing stuff. You're busy dealing with increased production and greater sales rather than going, oh no, we need to change our fulfillment house. Oh no, we need to change our bottler, etc., etc. We covered a lot of ground in this episode, so to help you, you can find the summary notes for this episode and links to more free resources by visiting startupdonut.co.uk/podcast. And remember, that is donut spelt DONUT. This series exists to help you complete key tasks and negotiate challenges when setting up and growing your new business. So next up, we'll be covering how to successfully start a family business. It's a great way to start a business, but what should you consider in advance to set yourself up for success? Our guest, Fiona Graham of the Institute of Family Business, will be sharing all the advice you need, including the best ways to go about it. And even if you're not starting a family business, maybe you're starting one with a great friend like Matt has done, there's a lot of great tips in there that are going to help you build for success too. If you're enjoying the series, picking up valuable tips, then please spread the word to others you know who are setting up a business or thinking about it. And be sure to sign up to the Donut Weekly newsletter for free startup news, advice and special offers to help your new business succeed. You will find that at www.startupdonut.co.uk/newsletters. Finally, thank you to Dell Technologies for making this whole series possible. And don't forget to join the Dell for Startups programme for more exclusive benefits and valuable resources. Details coming up now.
Did you know you can get even more out of Startup Donut with new exclusive benefits from Dell Technologies? Dell for Startups provides key solutions to help set up your startup for success, including exclusive member pricing and a dedicated technology advisor who will get to know the needs and goals of your business. Advisors will deliver customized, scalable solutions for rapid tech enablement with top business class PCs and accessories. Join now for valuable resources that will help your business get growing. Visit dell.com/UK startups to join today.